The Sun Path of Druidry in the Black Mountain Druid Order contains the triad of gods and goddesses, rites of passage, and the Wheel of the Year. In this episode, we'll talk a bit about celebrating the Wheel of the Year. Why celebrate it? One reason is that by honoring the high days, we seek divine inspiration in our lives and in ourselves. Since Druids seek inspiration through the Imbus, or the Awen in the Welsh tradition, no discussion of the Druid perspective of the Wheel of the Year would be complete without an elaboration on the concept of the Awen. Awen is a Welsh word, roughly translated as divine inspiration. The word is Indo-European in origin and comes from the root ul, which means to blow. In this sense, it can be seen to mean that which takes one's breath away. In other words, that which is awe-inspiring. Druid revivalist Iolo Morganwg created the graphical representation of the Awen that consists of 3 descending lines, in this manner. The most basic interpretation of this symbol is 3 rays of divine light descending to the earth, bringing inspiration. It can be one of the most meaning-rich symbols in most Druid traditions. It can represent balance between chaos and order, or earth, sea, and sky, or the triple nature of the god and the goddess, or the triads of Druidry, or any of dozens of other interpretations. The word Awen comes to us from the Welsh tradition of the Druid revival, led and inspired by Iolo Morganwg in the 18th century. Since that tradition is almost 3 centuries old, the word Awen is the one most commonly used for divine inspiration in Druidry. However, since our order also incorporates Scottish and Irish traditions, we also use Imbus. One interpretation of the Imbus that is specifically significant is a representation of the Wheel of the Year. This representation, known as the Triad of Sunrises, works as follows. If you place a stake in the ground and use it to mark the progression of the sun across the sky in the northern hemisphere, the line on the right will mark the sun's westernmost position at the vernal equinox. The middle line will represent the sun's position at the solstices, and the left line will represent the sun's easternmost position at the autumnal equinox. These lines will be represented by the shadows the stake casts upon the ground at each of these points. These 3 points are a graphic representation of the Imbus or the Awen symbol. The concept of the Triad of Sunrises is that nature herself writes the Imbus upon the earth every year. From this perspective, the Imbus is the means by which we seek the divine in our own lives, and the Wheel of the Year is a living physical embodiment of that divine inspiration written upon the earth. So the celebration of the Wheel of the Year is a celebration of our path of seeking divine inspiration. In future episodes, we will examine each high day of the Wheel of the Year, focusing on the gods and goddesses associated with each, their corporeal, spiritual, and ritualistic significance, and symbols and rites associated with each. We'll also discuss the suggested ritual format for each high day. These rites are offered merely as suggestions. The ritual you ultimately choose should be one that gives you meaning and helps you and your grove to seek the Imbus. Although we will focus primarily on the Celtic pantheon when discussing gods and goddesses, an exclusively Celtic-based pantheon is not a requirement for any ritual in the Black Mountain Druid Order. There are Druids in our order who focus on a particular pantheon, and there are Druids who are eclectic in practice, drawing their inspiration from the gods and goddesses of many traditions. If a particular god or goddess speaks to you, don't hesitate to call upon them in your ritual practice. For this week's activity, consider what celebrating the Wheel of the Year means to you. What personal meaning could you derive from observing rituals? How would observing the high days add balance to your own life? The goddess for this week is Jadine. Jadine is a Celtic goddess of love and sexuality. She was the wife of Oscar, who was the grandson of the druid Finn McCool. When her husband Oscar died in the Battle of Gabra, she was so saddened that she died from her grief. Jadine is the goddess of psychic powers and intuition. If she calls you, she could be telling you to pay close attention to your intuition and to your dream life. Have you had any dreams that came to pass? Have you ever had any hunches that later turned out to be true? If so, Jadine may be trying to get your attention. Honeysuckle is Jadine's sacred plant. If you feel drawn to her, you may wish to place a bit of honeysuckle on your altar as an offering. Honeysuckle blossoms produce a very sweet sap that has the ability to purge toxins from the blood and the liver. As a plant that's sacred to Jadine, this purging property reminds her devotees to regularly purge themselves of toxic thoughts, feelings, and negativity. A tea made of honeysuckle blossoms can help with this psychic purification. Making and drinking such a tea when in communion with Jadine aids in purifying the mind and the spirit. You may also wish to put honeysuckle blossoms in a bath for the same purpose. Jadine's temple is said to be covered with honeysuckle. As such, it is a symbol of new life, new beginnings, and rebirth. Any part of this plant would be helpful in any magic involved with starting over. It may also be used in rites and rituals regarding divination and enhancing your powers of intuition. To protect your home and garden from negative energies, plant honeysuckle near your door while invoking Jadine. If honeysuckle grows over the lintels of your door, it will protect all who dwell within from toxic and negative influences. Jadine is a goddess of love and sexuality. Honeysuckle clings tenaciously to anything it grows on, and for this reason, it can be used in powerful love magic. It is often used at hand fastings and weddings for this reason. When honeysuckle is used in this manner, Jadine is always present at the rite of passage to bless the event. Honeysuckle may also be used to ensure fidelity between romantic partners or in divination when infidelity is suspected. Invoke Jadine's assistance when using honeysuckle in this way. Another of Jadine's realms is that of the psychic powers. Because honeysuckle is her sacred plant, its magical powers also involve psychic magic. You can weave a dream catcher of honeysuckle while chanting to Jadine to chase away nightmares. A charm of honeysuckle worn about the wrist or the neck improves the intuitive abilities of the one who wears it, especially if Jadine is your matron goddess. Hummingbirds are Jadine's sacred animals. If hummingbirds appear to you or seem to follow you around, perhaps Jadine is telling you to pay more attention to your intuitive abilities and your capacity for love. She may be calling you to follow her. Hummingbirds are attracted to brightly colored flowers because those are the ones with the most nourishment. Devotees of Jadine love deeply and strongly and are attracted to people who have the ability to feel the same way. Hummingbirds are especially attracted to the color red, the color of love. When Jadine calls to you, she is speaking to your ability to love. Like a hummingbird, you seek the flowers with the most sustenance. Oddly enough, hummingbird feathers have little color of their own. Instead, they have optic properties that cause them to reflect the light in all the colors of the rainbow, like a prism. If Jadine calls to you, you will learn to reflect the light and joy in your own life so you can turn the ordinary into the beautiful for everyone around you. Invoke Jadine when you need deeper psychic abilities or intuition, especially in matters of love and sexuality. Should Jadine appear to you, prepare for a period of growth in your powers of clairvoyance. If you're single, Jadine may appear to you when a new romance is about to begin in your life. If you're in a relationship, she may be calling upon you to have a deeper and more intimate stage of that relationship. If you are a follower of Jadine, remember also that she died of grief. It can be very tempting to give so much to a relationship that there's nothing left of you. Always love deeply and fully, but always remember to love yourself as well. In discussions on paganism, druidry, and nature-centered spirituality, you often hear the terms UPG, VPG, or maybe even SPG. So what do these terms mean? In Druidry as practiced by the Black Mountain Druid Order, we seek to recapture Celtic shamanism by seeking the divine inspiration of the Awen. One of the skills of the Celtic shaman is to be able to walk between the worlds, visit the other world, and bring back knowledge. But how do we know that the knowledge we're bringing back is accurate? That's where the terms UPG and VPG come in. UPG stands for Unverified Personal Gnosis. The word gnosis comes from the Greek word for knowledge. Unverified personal gnosis is therefore a personal experience or knowledge that has not been verified by history or the experiences or observations of others. A UPG experience might hold great meaning for the person who had it, but unless verified in some way, it must remain UPG where other people are concerned. For example, if someone comes to me and tells me that they went on a shamanic journey and met Angus MacOg, and Angus demanded that I give them all my wealth and personal goods, I'm going to need some sort of independent verification before I can act on this person's word. VPG, on the other hand, stands for Verified Personal Gnosis. VPG experiences are those a person may have had that has been verified by history, archaeology, or by the experiences of others. I first discovered Druidry in 1978. Back then, we began experimenting with trying to recapture Celtic shamanism. This work got much more into depth in the early 1980s. In those times, there weren't a lot of other Druid organizations, but as time progressed, more and more people became interested in Celtic shamanism, and we started encountering people who were engaged in the same sort of experimentation that we were. What was interesting to me, and a confirmation of what we were doing, is that they were getting many of the same messages that we were in our own journeys to the other world. The most common and most significant message we were all receiving is that there was a great change coming, and that people all over the world would rediscover their ancestral roots. The message was that indigenous spirituality would undergo a great rebirth. This has since come to pass as Druidry, paganism, and other forms of indigenous spirituality have grown and continue to grow all over the world. These shamanic experiences were a shared vision from the other world. Since other people had had similar experiences and could verify what we had been seeing and hearing, these experiences became VPG, or Verified Personal Gnosis. Because these events were also shared among people from various locations at different times, with no prior knowledge of what the others were doing, they were also SPG events, or Shared Personal Gnosis events. They were personal because the messages were geared towards the individuals receiving them, and they were shared because the knowledge contained in the messages were similar, and in some cases identical. So what does all of this mean? In any organization that promotes and seeks interaction with alternate realms of existence, there's always a thin line to walk between people bringing back actual knowledge from other realms and from people being deceived by hucksters and would-be cult leaders. In the case of these con artists, they insist on followers taking their personal UPG as law, while in the case of actual messages from beyond, they tend to have ways to be verified. VPG is a way to ask for and seek confirmation that such personal experiences are true and valid. By seeking confirmation, we minimize the danger of being deceived. That's why in the Black Mountain Druid Order, we always seek to verify any experiences before acting on them. When we do so, UPG becomes VPG, and VPG helps us to grow. The way we tell the difference between UPG and VPG is through group consensus and through observation. In the case of group consensus, we always ask what the group has experienced and observed. Does it further the intentions of the grove as a whole? Does it edify members of the grove? If so, then it is useful. If not, while it may be helpful to the individual who shared it, it must for now remain in the realm of unverified personal gnosis. In the Mother Grove of the Black Mountain Druid Order, we have a saying that if you do something 3 times or more, it has become a new tradition. When an experience or observation becomes a part of a grove's verified personal gnosis, it can help facilitate celebration and enhance meaning for the grove's members. In this way, we are able to create new traditions as we recreate Druidry. The Wheel of the Year is the pagan celebration of the cycles of the seasons as the sun waxes and wanes on the horizon. The celestial events of the heavens have become a popular metaphor for the cycle of life on Earth. Most pagans express this concept with the phrase, as above, so below. This metaphor is especially apt when applied to the life cycle of human beings. In the Wheel of the Year, the period between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox represents childhood. Just as the sun is born again at midwinter and the days begin to grow longer, human children are born and grow to adolescence. This is the period of quickening. As an infant grows into a toddler, then into a pre-adolescent, that child becomes first aware of itself as a separate individual, then as a part of the world. The period between the vernal equinox and the summer solstice is seen as a metaphor for youth and adolescence. The flora and the fauna of the earth are growing to full bloom and reaching maturity. Likewise, children are leaving their childhoods and growing to become members of a society. It's a time for gaining independence from their parents and from finding their place in the world. After the summer solstice, the plants begin to give their fruits and the harvest time will soon be near. As humans mature, they marry and have children, the fruit of their love. They also make their way in the world and begin to enjoy the fruits of their careers and their education. The period between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice equates to the period of old age in the human life cycle. The fruits we have planted are beginning to be harvested and put away for the winter. Our investments are paying off, and it's a time for quiet contemplation of the seasons that have gone before. And just as the trees shed their leaves in preparation for the winter, many people begin deciding how to shed their possessions by preparing wills and inheritance agreements. Likewise, as the trees drop their nuts and berries onto the ground, and these become the new trees and plants in the new spring, older humans may drop their seeds of wisdom upon the fertile soils of the minds of the younger ones, who are willing and able to receive them. So why celebrate the Wheel of the Year? Off and on, I've spent many years as a solitary druid, then as a lone druid. When I moved to a new town and left my first grove back in the early 1980s, there were many years where I no longer engaged in a ritualistic observation of the Wheel of the Year. At the time, I didn't see any point to performing a ritual if there was no group to share it with. Over the years, as I've talked to many newbie pagans, I've found that this attitude is prevalent among many of them. The thought seems to be that if one of the points of a ritual is to raise group energy, how can that be accomplished if there is no group? But as I've grown over the years, I've come to realize that there is comfort in ritual. It's a scientific fact that if human beings find themselves in a situation without a way to express themselves through ritual, we tend to spontaneously invent our own rituals. If you've ever watched children on a playground, you know this is true. There's something within us that seeks the security and stability of doing things in a familiar pattern. Over time, the best parts of our rituals become traditions. If a tradition becomes widespread enough, it can be reassuring to know that people all over the world are engaging in the same practice at the same time. For example, if you visit any pagan community in the world on the winter solstice, you can be assured that they will probably be celebrating the rebirth of the sun in some shape or fashion. Even if you're in solitary practice, ritual can be useful and edifying. It's easy to neglect performing ritual when you're alone, simply because there's no one else there to help you participate. Even so, I would recommend that you make some effort to perform some sort of ritual for each high day and for other significant rites of passage in your life, even if it's only a 5 or 10 minute meditation and offering. By doing so, you include yourself in the circle of pagans and druids worldwide who are engaging in the same practice at the same time. Knowing that you're part of something larger, even if you're alone at home, is an empowering thought. As we discussed in previous episodes, the celebration of the Wheel of the Year is one of the ways in which druids seek the imbus. If you find that your ritual practice has become empty and meaningless, and you feel you're just going through the motions, then the time has come to re-examine how you approach ritual. Remember that there's no right or wrong way to perform a rite, as long as it has meaning for you. If your ritual practice has become meaningless, then take a look at what you're doing and find ways to replace the uninspiring portions with more meaningful symbols. Always remember to focus on the intent of the ritual itself, so that the meaning doesn't get lost in the details. In the next section, we're going to examine some of the elements of a Druid ritual. The list isn't all-inclusive, but it will give you a good place to start when crafting your own ceremonies. If something not discussed here has a special significance for you, don't hesitate to incorporate it into your own ritual practice. Elements of a meaningful ritual. Have you ever attended a pagan or nature-centered event or ritual? If so, what were the elements of the event that made it enjoyable or meaningful for you? If you've never attended such an event, imagine you were invited to one. What elements would be most likely to make it enjoyable or meaningful for you? Before discussing the elements of a Druid ritual, we should first talk about what makes a good ritual. There are several components that can be used to enhance the effectiveness of any rite. Some work better than others, and some are only for specific occasions or specific groups. Some work better in solitary practice, and some work better in larger gatherings. Each of these elements has its own characteristics. It's ultimately up to you to decide how to best blend these elements into your own ritual practice. When choosing, select the elements that enhance the purpose and meaning you have chosen for your rite. First off, let's talk about music. Music is the language of emotion. The addition of music to any ritual creates another layer of meaning that's not easily accessible by mere spoken words. The Celtic bards of old were well known for their musical abilities. It's said that a well-crafted bardic song could stop armies in mid-battle. We've all had the experience of being deeply moved by a well-written piece of music or poetry. As paganism has grown, we've begun to develop our own collection of favorite pagan songs and chants, and many of these are recognizable worldwide. They have become popular additions to many pagan circles. If you choose to incorporate music into your ritual, first think about the mood you're attempting to create. Obviously, a somber occasion, like an ancestor vigil for Samhain, wouldn't call for lively, up-tempo music. Neither would you want a somber dirge for a Beltane celebration. Tailor your music to the season. Next, if you're planning a ritual for a group, consider whether or not you would like the whole group to participate in the musical portion. If you expect everyone to sing, do they know all the words? If you expect everyone to drum, do they all have drums? A little planning ahead of time can eliminate a lot of confusion during the ritual. Be aware also that many first-timers at a ritual may be shy and hesitant about singing in a group, so they may need a little more encouragement. During most rituals, there's a time for quiet contemplation and a time for active participation. When choosing music, the tempo should reflect the mood of the next segment of the ritual. The human heartbeat is around 60 to 80 beats per minute. Music with a tempo below 60 beats per minute tends to be relaxing and soothing, while music with a tempo above 80 beats per minute is exciting and rousing. If you're entering a meditative portion of a ritual, you won't want to precede that segment with a fast tempo song. Likewise, if you're about to call for active participation, maybe a spiral dance or some other physical activity, you wouldn't want to preface it with a slow-moving song. You should pace your tempos to your moods. Perhaps one of the best ways to include everyone in the music portion of a ritual is through the use of chants. Most chants consist of only one or two short verses or couplets with a simple melody. The stanzas are usually sung over and over again for a prescribed number of times, or until a signal is given by the facilitator of the ritual. The advantage of using chants is that they are easy to remember, and they make attendees active participants instead of passive observers. As our voices unite, individuals are brought into the group, sharing energy. Another way to encourage group participation is through drumming. If you've ever attended a pagan event, chances are you've probably seen plenty of drum circles. One of the reasons for this is that almost anyone can play a drum. All that's required is a rudimentary sense of rhythm and a drum of your own. Used properly, music can create a deep emotional experience for all of those who are attending your rituals. As you gain practice with creating your own rituals, your skill at choosing the proper music will grow. In coming episodes, we'll be talking more about some elements of a ritual.
Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, may the gates be open. Ancestors, shining ones, join us at the door. Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, may the gates be open. Ancestors, shining ones, join us at the door. Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, may the gates be open. Ancestors, shining ones, join us at the door. Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, may the gates be open. Ancestors, shining ones, join us at the door. Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, may the gates be open. Ancestors, shining ones, join us at the door. Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining ones, may the gates be open. Ancestors, shining ones, join us at the door. Ancestors, shining ones, guide us with your wisdom. Ancestors, shining ones who've gone before. Ancestors, shining